everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. So Activist Post has a piece: YouTube begins purging alternative media as deep state marches towards World War III. Now, interestingly, this has been ramped up big time, especially since the fake Russia narrative kind of took place. So you had the fake news push, and then you had the Russia, bad Russia's been interfering with the election results, and all this kind of stuff. And then you have YouTube, whose parent company, of course, is Google, goes and begins the systematic demonetization and limitation of YouTube accounts that are critical of a deep state agenda. Notice I say deep state agenda, certainly not a White House agenda. Who knows what their agenda is? I have no idea. It is just an absolute mess what's going on at the White House. But you take a look at what the deep state is advancing, and it really puts things in perspective. Paul Craig Roberts wrote a piece last week where he discussed what the real purpose is for North Korea, what they're doing. Of course, it provides a buffer between China and the West as far as borders are concerned. But the way that the United States is using it, they use the war-like rhetoric to get people afraid and amped up. But behind the scenes, what they're using this for is a way to place their anti-missile equipment and their ballistic missile defense systems as close as they can to China and Russia as possible. That's really what a lot of this saber rattling is all about. It's the ability to be able to do this. Now, you notice really early in the public dialogue, China really got bent out of shape when we started putting anti-ballistic missiles in South Korea, to the point where South Korea actually saw what was going on and they put a halt to it. They're like, no, we don't want these damn things in our country. Why? Because it has nothing to do with North Korea. If North Korea shot a missile just from where these THAAD missile launchers are, it doesn't provide the type of coverage that you'd be looking for North Korea. These anti-ballistic missile systems are put in place to defend against a Chinese missile launch or a Russian missile launch, not a North Korean missile launch. So it's very interesting to see what's going on behind the scenes. Now, back at home, Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda, the father of public relations, actually put the process and the playbook that the powers that shouldn't be are using into place. And one of the things are you have to control the information that's being put out to the masses. If you're going to control the masses and you're going to get groupthink to kind of take place, well, the best way and easiest way to do it is fear. The best and most effective way to get your argument home is if you appeal to one's survivability or reproducibility. If you talk to any leading psychoanalyst, they'll tell you that. And so that is why you have this fear-mongering war push coming all over the mainstream media, coming from the White House, everything else. They want you to fear your survivability, because if they can do so, they can control you. And that's exactly what they're doing. And then behind the scenes, that's what you really have to pay attention to and why they're going about doing this. It says if you get your news from mostly far-left sources, chances are you've heard that YouTube and Google are censoring or blacklisting left and progressive sites and content. Now, conversely, if you get your news from far-right sources, chances are you've heard that YouTube and Google are censoring their content as well. Now, if you want to know which side is being truthful and trying to expose the censorship, well, it's both of them. In the last week, we've witnessed a massive crackdown on alternative media, the likes of which are unprecedented. Quite literally overnight, YouTube issued a sweeping update and demonetized thousands of videos and accounts across the political spectrum. If you ask Paul Joseph Watson from InfoWars, it's because they're cracking down on pro-Trump pages. Pro-Trump personalities, Diamond and Silk, were also hit with demonetization purges. And they claim it was because YouTube's going after Trump supporters. Now, while both Watson and Diamond and Silk have their videos demonetized, the rabbit hole goes far deeper than pro-Trump. If it were pro-Trump videos being hit with censorship sweeps, then why did Luke Rudkowski, the founder of We Are Change, also get purged? Nearly all of his YouTube videos were demonetized. Now, Rudkowski is most certainly not a participant in the left-right paradigm, nor is he a Trump supporter, but he was hit too. Now, when asked about what he thought as far as people claiming that it's their pro-Trump status getting them censored, this is what Luke said. He said, obviously that's not the case since it looks like they hit me and my channel, which is clearly very critical of Donald Trump, and for the reasons that the MSM would never touch. It's not just We Are Change and pro-Trump followers either. The folks over at the World Socialist website, a far-left organization, with a clearly advertised agenda, they're being hit too. And according to the scathing report from WSWS.org, they're not alone either. YouTube owners have reportedly undertaken a similar attack on alternative viewpoints. Truth Out, a nonprofit website that focuses on political, social, and ecological developments from a left progressive standpoint, had its readership plunged by 35% since April. The Real News, a nonprofit video news and documentary service, had its search traffic fall by 37%. Common Dreams, another progressive website, had its traffic fall by up to 50%. What this really is, according to Robert Epstein, former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today, he said this, quote, "This is political censorship of the worst sort. It's just an excuse to suppress political viewpoints." That is exactly what's going on here. People's ability to get involved politically are being suppressed. Why? Because having these social media platforms have proven to be a very powerful weapon in getting people plugged in. And now they're trying to make it harder and harder and harder to do so. And a lot of people over time have got hooked on the easy Google Ads revenue, because it's a lot easier to go for that than to say solicit sponsorships on your own, fundraising drives, things like that. It takes up a lot of time and energy, which is why in the past a lot of people didn't really get involved, because they didn't have the resources, and more importantly, they didn't have the time to get the resources to do this, because they were busy trying to support and raise their own families. So Google Ads and the way that YouTube did things actually made it a lot easier, made it easier for people to be able to have a platform that would generate the revenue to perhaps fund a website. You have to understand something, that Google Ads did not make anybody rich, not unless you put fuzzy kittens on your YouTube channel or, totally mindless garbage. Then, of course, you'd be rich. But if you're doing this for, say, political activism or whatever activism that you're in, oh, no. I mean, it's enough to maybe pay your monthly website costs and things like that. But I mean, that's basically it. But it was enough to get enough people energized and involved. And it had a huge effect. It wasn't the Russians that threw the election. It was political activism from both sides that threw everything into disarray. And it happened in 2008, and it happened in 2012. And all those times, they try to make an excuse. Well, it's this, it's that, it's the Russians. It's not. It's called people being plugged in and making a difference, making a change within their sphere of influence. So now what YouTube is doing is they're training their AI to spot anything that goes against the political propaganda that the government and the deep state wants out there to push certain narratives. And if it doesn't agree with that narrative, if it doesn't agree with it or it runs in conflict to it, they demonetize it. They limit its reach. Same with websites. Google will limit the search traffic of these popular websites. Why? Because they don't want any more damage. This is damage control. They feel like their plan is under threat. So they're trying to do away with it. Now, there's good news in that YouTube isn't the only real game on the street. Yes, they are from probably like a video standpoint. You could use other sites too, like Vimeo. They don't have the monetization, but there are ways you can go about doing it. And there are websites that are popping up like Steemit. So Steemit's one. Patreon is another, where you can go as a content creator or independent media personality or anything you want. You start a page and you can try and solicit membership and sponsorships through these platforms in order to offset the censorship that's happening over on YouTube and Google and Facebook. And if you can do that and you can build your network of people who support you, then you can keep the game going. So the interesting thing is, whenever these things happen, there's always ways to circumvent. Every single time. If there's one thing I learned in government in my time as a civil servant, I can tell you this. Sometimes people with the best intentions go ahead and put forth legislation to make a difference in government. Even higher ranking bureaucrats that have a conscience, that feel it necessary to be a good vanguard of the taxpayer money, go and put certain rules in place in order to stop the corruption, to stop all of the waste, the fraud, the abuse. But just like everything else, where there's a will, there's a way, and there's always a workaround. So as hard as YouTube and Google and Facebook and Twitter and all of these other social media platforms try to silence dissent, try to silence alternative viewpoints, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's going to end in horrific failure. But it depends on you. It depends on you, the listener, the reader, the ones that are looking for this information, to step up, come forward, and sponsor your best, your favorite personalities so that they can keep on doing their work and bypass this offensive by Google, Facebook, Twitter, other social media platforms in the deep state. And if we can do that and come together, I'm telling you, the sky's the limit. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. Have a great day.